Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, everyone. My name is Matt, with me is Dylan, and today we are discussing one of the biggest movies of the year, one of our most anticipated movies of the year. We're talking the Paramount Pictures film of the holiday season, Babylon by Damien Chazelle. So Babylon has been a film that I've been anticipating for like a very, 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 very long time. Mm-hmm. It's one that... I read the script for. I absolutely adored the script. La La Land, Whiplash, First Man are all films I'd give a 10 out of 10 to. I think Damien Chazelle is one of the best filmmakers in the world right now. So Babylon is finally out, and I'm going to be honest. I'm just a teeny bit disappointed. Mm-hmm. But what did you think? Before I get into my feelings on this, I know that you're wearing your Cats shirt in honor of Babylon.
I am.
I don't fully understand the comparison that you're making there between Cats and Babylon, but
yes, I got it.
What?
Here. I got it here. So, YouTube viewers can see Matt is in a Paramount hoodie. I am in a Cats t-shirt. Spotify, Apple, podcast listeners, they don't see that. Here's my case. Cats came out in 2019, and I was very much anticipating that movie like I was anticipating this one. I had heard beforehand, everyone told me, this movie sucks, this movie's divisive, this movie's whatever. And I go into them, and I have the same experience. I've never done hard drugs before, but both of these movies feel like what doing a hard drug would do to your body and how you would feel in the process of experiencing said drug. You start off in a state of mania where you feel on top of the world. Nothing can go wrong. In this case of Babylon, the score by Hurwitz is just so bombastic. The production design, the costumes, the editing, it's all so flashy. It's in your face. It's bold. It's so stylized. And then about an hour into Babylon, I think the ecstasy kind of wears off. And this is a spoiler review for everyone out there. We have it in the title, but this is your reminder right here.
Oh, yeah.
Spoilers for Babylon.
Get out of here.
Once the talkies become a thing, this film has a tonal switch, and like I mentioned before, the ecstasy wears off. The characters, they're in a state of lull, and they feel like everything they do is a loss. They can't win. The flair for the movie is gone. Like I mentioned before, the costumes, the editing, the production, the score, all of it takes a little bit less of a flashy step, and it is echoed in the tone of the movie. I still think the movie is good in this point, and both movies have this, comparing it back to Cats as well, they have this state of lull where you're like, okay, the magic's gone a little bit, but I'm still rocking with what you're doing. And then the end of the movie happens, and this analogy I'm making for drugs would be the repercussions of indulging, where you have this state of just like negativity. You hate yourself. You hate everything around you. You just want to feel that high again. You just want it back, and you're not getting it. And in the case of Babylon, the movie is very much hitting you over the head with like, hey, life sucks. Hollywood sucks. Get out of here. Your life can only become good if you get out, as seen by the characters who do leave Babylon, because the characters who do stay in it, like Brad Pitt, like Margot Robbie, like Diego Calva for a time, they face the lowest of their lows, and sometimes it goes too far, and you feel like you're really being killed in the heart with that whole Tobey Maguire sequence, and you're in that state of just like, I hate life, and I want nothing to do with what's going on right now. I'm scared. I don't know what's going to happen. And eventually you hit the end where you're able to reflect on everything that just happened. And Babylon offers a very interesting conclusion to this film, where it is reflecting on what the movie itself means. And then you have to think, I just sat through a 3-hour movie. Was it all worth it? And that's where I think a lot of people's divisionness of this movie comes from. If they think that final sequence means something to them, they'll be like, yeah, it was worth it. But if they didn't rock with that last montage sequence, they'll be like, why did I just waste 3 hours of my life? And I lean on I think it was all worth it. I love the story. I love the arc that all these characters go on. And I think the ending offers something very interesting and very different than what I was really expecting. But you have read the script, so I'd love to hear what is different from this film's ending compared to the actual ending that Damien Chazelle presented us, because at least it seems my interpretation of the ending seems very different from what most other people took away from the end of Babylon.
Well, I just want to say, I think you're the only person that's ever going to compare Babylon to Cats, ever.
I love that, though, because to me, like I mentioned before, I had the same feelings in both of these movies.
Yeah.
I could pinpoint scenes where I'm like, okay, I feel the same here as I felt there. I mean that in a good and a bad way.
Yeah, I can see it. I don't agree. I mean, you like Cats a lot more than most people do. I like Cats a lot more than most people do, and you like Cats a lot more than I do. But for me with Babylon, I'll talk about the ending in just a second, but I guess reading the script, the script is one of my favorite screenplays that I've ever read in my entire life, and I read a lot of screenplays. And to me, the screenplay itself is a straight up 10 out of 10. I think it's so full of excess. It's full of just insanity. It goes all the way to the limits and beyond. The film, to me, was like a strong 6 out of 10, light 7 out of 10. I'm leaning a light 7 out of 10 right now. And I guess why I feel that is just because I don't know if Damien Chazelle was the right director. He was the right writer for the material, but I don't think he was the right director for the material. And I love Damien Chazelle. Like I said, he's one of the best directors in the world right now. But he is a band kid. He is a theater kid. He is a movie dork, someone who is obsessed with what movies mean to him. He is not the type of person that is at these parties. He's not the type of person, like, he's someone who maybe appreciates what these parties signify in terms of Hollywood's history, but like he's a geek. I don't know. He's a geeky dude. He's a nerd. And I say that also as a nerd. Like, and I would never try to make a movie like Babylon because it's too much. It's too much. And there was one review that said it's a Scorsese Coke film directed by a squeaky clean director. And that sums up my feelings of the film. It feels like at once it's both far too much and it's not enough. It's someone imagining all the excess in the world without ever having really... not saying you have to experience this type of party to be able to depict it on screen, but it feels like it's not doing enough, and at the same time it's doing too much. Almost as though it's compensating for Damien Chazelle not really understanding this environment. I don't know. I guess it's all like a very idealized world. It's a vision of what Chazelle imagines this place to be, but what he's never kind of Does that make sense? I don't know. It just feels like there are directors who are sleazier, who are grimier than Chazelle. And Chazelle he's not great at making a grimy film like Babylon.
No, yeah, I definitely get what you are laying down here. We talked a little bit before, and I think we both had the same idea of what director we would maybe replace him with, which I think was very interesting because, like, I didn't have to spur the conversation. You mentioned it was like, oh, I said that the night before, and I fully like that idea. Would you like to talk a little bit about who you think would be a better fit here?
Yeah, so the thing that I kept thinking of, so you said that you loved the first hour and then it slows down in the second hour. I actually think that it wasn't enough stylistically in that first hour. And it made me keep thinking, what if Baz Luhrmann did this? Like, Baz Luhrmann, as much as I think Damien Chazelle is a much better director than Baz Luhrmann is a goddamn madman. He's a madman. And his films are bombastic in a way that Babylon never truly is. And so I was saying, if you swapped around, you made a better point, because I said if you swapped around Elvis and Babylon's directors, and you had Chazelle do Elvis and Baz Luhrmann do Babylon, they'd both be better films. But you said Gatsby, and I actually agree with that. If you had Damien Chazelle do Gatsby and you had Baz Luhrmann do Babylon, they would both be much better films than what they are.
I think I do agree with that, but I also, like I mentioned before, I'm a little bit higher in Babylon. I feel like Chazelle adds a very interesting dynamic that I don't think Baz could bring, because I don't think Baz would go as grotesque and as R-rated as Chazelle does here. And I think that's what the parts of the movie that work very well is just how deep it goes into those R ratings where I don't feel like Baz would lean as far there. Because if I'm not mistaken, Baz never done an R-rated movie.
He has Moulin Rouge was definitely
It
R.
was? Okay.
I think so. I mean, if I'm remembering, I think that there was some nudity and there was definitely some sex sequences that weren't very explicit. But yeah, you're right that he wouldn't have gone as far into that. But at the same time, I think that that's a little bit of my problem with the film. I'm not someone who's squeamish or anything, but I think that Chazelle had it so in his head that he wanted to be raunchy with this film when I don't think he needed to. Like, The Wolf of Wall Street is a great touch point, where I think The Wolf of Wall Street is an incredibly vulgar and very raunchy film, but it's never a film that is trying too hard to be so.
Yeah.
It just happens organically. And with this, you can really tell he's like that one scene. Actually, I think the first time I laughed in the movie was the scene in the bathroom where Brad Pitt's character is talking about how, why would people want to hear sound in their films? And then someone like grotesquely farts in the background. That was the first time I laughed in the film.
Wow.
But I think that Chazelle was really trying to go almost too far into the sleazy direction when that's not who he is as a filmmaker. And if I were to actually say like how I think Chazelle should have brought more of himself to this film, because La La Land was such an opulent vision of Hollywood, and I would have loved to see more of that in this one, even though that's not the story he's telling. It just, everything looked so grimy and gross, and I think that it would have been almost a better approach, in my mind, if he portrayed it as very opulent, very grand, up until things start to go wrong, things start to spiral. That Tobey Maguire sequence could have been really shocking in a film where everything else felt very Gatsby. Everything else felt very big and opulent and like Babylonian, but everything felt sleazy, and it doesn't feel like he knows how to do that tone.
Okay. I disagree a little bit, but I understand where you're coming from. I think I fell for this movie immediately. I think I laughed within the first minute of when the guy who comes for the horse says, "Where's the horse?" And Manny points to the elephant, and he goes, "That's not a fucking horse." That got me there. But I want to move all the way to the end of this movie.
Let's talk the ending.
You did read the script, and while I have not read the script, I know that the movie's version is not the ending that was used in the script. So I would love to hear what the original ending was, because like I mentioned before, I've talked with some various different people about my interpretations of the ending, and I feel like I'm the only one on this little ledge I'm on. So I'd love to hear what the actual original one was, then your feelings, and then we can get to mine.
Yeah. So I definitely don't remember the ending like 100% in the original, but I think it was actually very similar, because everything felt very true. Like, so the ending to me, I actually was feeling like, okay, this is, Chazelle does it again. I think Chazelle is the master of endings. Like, Whiplash has, of course, the epic conclusion at the concert. La La Land's ending is one of the greatest of all time, with its surrealist musical number. First Man, what an incredible ending, with, Neil Armstrong sitting in silence, thinking about how he left his daughter's, the memento of his daughter on the moon. And I was feeling like, oh my God, he's doing it again. Because I was like tearing up near the end, where Manny returns to the film studio. This happens in the script too. So Manny returns, he goes up to the gate. He's like, oh, do they release any good movies here? And the guard's like, I don't know. And he's like, okay, I remember. And then he wanders down the street and he leaves his family behind. And he sees a theater playing Singin' in the Rain. And he just buys a ticket because he doesn't, he just needs some time to kill. He doesn't know what Singin' in the Rain is. And the way that the script said it, because I flashed back to how the script wrote it when I was watching it, which is he sits down, he doesn't think of anything about the movie, and then he hears the jazz singer. And he starts to watch, and he starts to cry, because this isn't just a movie. He lived this. This is his life. And everything flashes before his eyes. And he finds himself being transported into the world of movies. The world that he once was a part of, that he once loved, which he left behind. And ultimately, In the script, it doesn't say anything about the montage. It just says that he begins to watch the movie the same way that he would have when he first got into movies. He watches in wonder. He's a part of the audience again. And he's seeing himself, his life, reflected on the screen. That ending, I think, is an incredible ending. I think it sums up everything about the movie. I think it shows that the main themes of the movie, to me, are that movies are big and they are worthwhile because they mean something and they last forever. Mm-hmm. Which is the other theme of the movie, is that nothing lasts forever. And time takes everything. And it's an interesting didactic theme because overall, the idea of time is that movies are literally made from time. A movie it's a set run time and a story happens over that course of time. And yet, time is also ever changing. And these characters their lives are destroyed by time because things change, time moves. And so, although their art is time is also what ruins them. But yeah, I don't know. The ending, I think, is a piece of shit in this movie. It's awful. It's a fucking awful ending. It's horrible. Horrible ending. Garbage ending. But if they cut before that montage of cinema, if they cut before Chazelle went all Godard and was like, movie, Avatar, and like showing the entire history of cinema, like that's not what the film's about. That's not what the film's about. The film is about Manny's own relationship with cinema. And so to go that big, it was so pretentious. It's so pretentious. It feels like Chazelle is like placing importance on his film that's not really there. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if it cut as the tears were streaming down Manny's face as he watched Singin' in the Rain, and we see reflected the story that we just watched in this movie, showing that cinema and life reflect each other. Perfect ending. To add in that sequence where it cuts from like A Voyage to the Moon to Un Chien Andalou to The Wizard of Oz to Avatar to Terminator to all of these different, like, it's such a bullshit ending.
See, I think that's where my interpretation of the movie comes in a little bit different to make that ending work a little bit more, because throughout the movie, the sense I was getting from is Babylon, Hollywood is a terrible place and you shouldn't be here. But Manny is so invested and he wants to be here. And we see throughout the movie the characters who do stay in Babylon, whether that is Nellie or whether that is Jack, they suffer, they die, they lose everything. The characters who leave, the jazz musician and the cabaret performer, they succeed. They get to live normal lives and get to find happiness. And Manny gets to get out. And then he gets a family, he finds happiness, he comes back. But what makes me change my opinion a little bit is, during that last sequence, I took it a very different way. I interpret it as Manny made it all up and created like a false reality in his head so he could be a part of something bigger. Be a part of the movies, like he talked about to Nellie. Since like when that montage starts, we see him talking with Nellie during that party, saying, "I want to be a part of something bigger. I want to be in the movies." But we see the scene play out again, but she doesn't walk up to him during her big dance. She walks past him. And then we see quick flickers of the rest of what Babylon was, whether it's the Brad Pitt Night movie or some other movies that he worked on with Nellie. And then we get into the film light flickers, where it's like the green light, the blue light, like how a film reel would end with the 3, 2, 1. I'm not sure if I'm describing that right, but we get those. And then it goes into the whole transition of the montage of film evolving over time. And at least what I grasped from it was Manny created this so he could be a part of something bigger, and now that he's watching a movie that's seemingly reflecting his own story, he's like, oh, I am a part of something bigger, and here's what the bigger thing is. Here's how cinema has progressed from my time to where we're at now in the present day with Terminator, with Avatar. I also like how everyone who talks about the montage, Avatar is the one movie they mention. They don't mention the other movies because everyone mentions Avatar. It's
so evident. It's the one modern movie that Chazelle includes, and I just want to say, no cultural impact. It's in Babylon. It's the most modern movie represented in Babylon. So yeah, if Chazelle is recapping cinematic history in that montage, Avatar is what he uses to recap modern cinema.
Because, like, I don't know. I just took it, like I said, Manny made up the whole experience, and he wanted to be involved in his love of Nellie's life, and that was his way in his head to do it. But also, now that I'm, like, reflecting on it, like, a day later, it doesn't make the most sense, because we do get scenes from Jack's perspective of Brad Pitt, where Manny's not involved in the scene at all. But we don't get much of Nellie on her own. We get a lot of either Manny or Jack, but not much of just Nellie. So that's where, I guess, I don't know. That's why I love talking movies out like we did with Nope and some other ones, just hearing other perspectives, because, like, I talked with, I think, 3 people in this span of, like, 12 hours about this movie, and each person's interpretation of the ending is different, and I think that's what's so cool about this movie.
Yeah, I don't think that it's all in Manny's head, but I would say I don't think the theme is that Hollywood is a horrible place and people should leave or be ruined by it. I think it's showing that. So the key thematic discussion of the film takes place in the first act, and it's as Nellie and Manny are snorting cocaine in the coat room of the party. And they both talk about why they want to be in movies. And Manny says that he wants to be a part of something important, something that will last forever. And Nellie says, I just want to have fun and I just want to party all the time. And I think what Chazelle's doing is he's comparing these two viewpoints of why people come to Hollywood. Do you want to be a part of something artistic and something beautiful? Or do you want to burn out quick, like a candle burning on both ends? And we see those two separate types of characters through the movie. We see the ones who live fast and die hard, and we see the ones who are committed to something beautiful. And ultimately, though, I think the point being made is that nothing is forever. Even though cinema is forever, nothing is forever. It's honestly, the Babylon title refers to D.W. Griffith's Intolerance, in which there's a Babylon sequence. But I also think of the Babylon in the title as almost like an Ozymandias style thing, where look and I forget how that poem goes, but the whole nothing beside remains. That idea of a collapse of a civilization. We're watching something grand that no longer exists and maybe never did exist in the first place, right? It's Babylonian in that way, that it's the civilization that is nothing but dust now. Time takes everything. And yeah, that's how I feel about Babylon. I think it truly is about the different values in Hollywood and why people join Hollywood, because I think that everyone has a different folly there. You know, are you there for eternal youth and beauty? Because that's never going to last. Are you there for a good time? Because that's not going to last. Are you there to make something beautiful? Because that's not going to last. Are you there to be remembered forever and immortalized? Because that's not going to last. Nothing lasts forever, and time takes everything away. That's my interpretation of Babylon. And, you know, at the same time, like, that's another thing that I see in that Singin' in the Rain ending, is that Manny's watching his own story play out on screen. But he's not remembered. He's not immortalized. He's watching what he went through, and yet the real people behind it have all been forgotten, and now it's just light entertainment. You know, this killed people. This was the end of multiple people's lives and careers. And now it's a silly movie musical.
All right, yeah. I like that. So we talked about what you didn't really like, being the ending. But moving over to some more, like, I guess, positives here with Babylon, of things you did like. Cause
I liked a lot about it. I liked a lot about this movie. So, yeah, I'm not negative on this movie.
Because I
just sound like it.
I love the text here. I think regardless of people's thoughts on the story here, I think this is another case kind of like Bardo, where, like, you have to admire the technical work here, whether it is the production, the score, I don't know about the editing, because, like I said, I love that first act, but there's some very, very weird cuts. I know originally this movie was 4 hours. I think that's where some of the weird cuts came from, because it's not like a pacing
I think
thing.
It could have been 2 hours, and I think that it would have been a better movie if you cut quite a bit out. Because,
like, to me, it wasn't as much as a pacing issue, where it was a lot of just, like, weird cuts. Like, we'd be in the middle of talking here, and the camera's on this side, and it would cut to show you for like a half a second and then come right back to me, even though you didn't say or do anything. You're just standing there in that moment. But like I mentioned in that initial discussion, I love the score here. I really love it in the first act when it's very commanding, very bold, very brash. It kind of does that there at the end, but there's a portion of the movie where it does take a step back. I love all the scenes on set, whether it is Brad Pitt's character on the night set or Margot Robbie's character where she's first rising her star, and then especially that first scene of her in the talkies where you get like 8 uninterrupted takes of just them trying to record with sound when no one's ever done it before and no one can get it right. And that's one thing I really like about this movie is I love the humor. I know this is a movie we had talked about in the past. Is this actually a comedy? Is this actually a drama? Maybe that's why it missed at some comedy shows and made other ones. But I thought the comedy really hit throughout the movie, especially in the first 2 acts. And my big negative here would come in the third act. As I mentioned before, that's when the euphoria of this movie kind of wears off a little bit and goes more in the absurdist realm, especially with the Tobey Maguire subplot. I enjoyed it.
Oh, I loved that.
I enjoyed it to an extent, but also it made me think afterwards, like, this one part feels so out of place and out of tone for the rest of the film. It doesn't match the specific characters that we're evolving with at the moment's character arcs or decision making, but also feeds into that whole thing that you were saying there, that they want to be remembered, they want to make something. Manny's so in love with Nellie that he's willing to do anything, risk his career to make sure she's safe, but also I would like to see more progression of their failed or attempted romance throughout, other than it be all one-sided and at the end they're like, okay, and then immediately ends. Like, it makes sense on her side, not so much on his side. But overall for me, I very much enjoyed Babylon. To do a complete roundup for the cat shirt, I had the same feelings here. Is this a very flawed movie? Yes. But something about the movie very much struck my chord of, like, this Oscar bait. Both of these movies are Dylan bait. They hit exactly what I like about movies. Like we mentioned before a few weeks ago, what's your ideal movie? I like bombastic. I like stylized. I like movies that go for it. They don't have to be perfect. They can have flaws, but if they give it their all and they're engaging, I can rock with it. And that's how I feel about Babylon.
Yeah, some things I liked about Babylon, I thought Brad Pitt was excellent. I think that his scene where he gets the phone call that his friend died, that his friend shot himself, and then he yells at his wife who's in the theater, I thought that scene was pretty incredible. I mean, you can tell that Brad Pitt has experience yelling at his wife.
I thought that too.
But no, I think that it's actually one of his strongest performances. And yeah, I mean, I would not advocate for nominating him this year. I don't think it's the right time to, but I thought he did a very good job in this film. Otherwise, the score, as you said, it's great. It's so good. I thought Tobey Maguire was fantastic. That whole sequence was terrifying and, like, gut-wrenching. Like, it just was so twisted. And I don't know, that was the only time in the movie where I felt like it captured the sleaze that it wanted to get. Mm-hmm. Although, again, it maybe wasn't far enough, and it was also too far at the same time. It's that weird thing. I really, really loved some of the sequences. I think that the sequence right after the party at the opening, where they're doing the filming out in the field, and there's all of this different madness going on around, and we see Nellie doing her first scene as the wild child, and we see them racing for the big costume picture, and Diego Calva, Manny having to drive to get the camera and drive to get back, and we see all of this cut together, and it's like the beauty of cinema coming together in such a crazy, horrible, unethical way. Mm-hmm. That sequence was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot that I like about this movie. There's also a lot of flaws that I have. I think that the cinematography was good, but it really made me think about how ugly Los Angeles is, which is sad because there's so many... It's not one of the films that makes Los Angeles look nice. It's very, very ugly and dusty and gray and dirty, and I don't know. I guess that's just not what I wanted out of this film. Like, it just did not feel tonally right with the visuals, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, the production design was very accomplished. The costumes were very accomplished. And everything about the film. It's very accomplished. I guess I'm a little disappointed overall, but still, it's a pretty good film. And like I said, I'd give it a strong 6 out of 10 or a light 7 out of 10. But for reference, I gave Whiplash, La La Land, First Man all 10 out of 10s. So this is disappointing for me.
I fully get all of your points there, the positives and the negatives. Like you mentioned before, the cross-cutting between Nellie's first time on set with Jack's costume picture and Manny having to drive, that is included in the party sequence for me, that whole first act, until the talkies become a thing when Manny has to go to the sequence. I would say that's maybe like the first hour 20 of the movie. Mm-hmm. That part to me is like what works for me the most, all those scenes together. But for a rating, I would go a very, very, very strong 8. The issues I have bring it down.
Nice.
I think that first, like I said, the first hour and a half would be a 10, probably in my top 4 of the year. And then the rest of the movie keeps continuously going down until we reach the end. But we both mentioned a lot of technicals as well as performances. So looking at Babylon's Oscar chances, because this is one at the beginning of the season looked like the nomination leader. It was going to have 10, 11 nominations. This was Paramount's dog in the race. Paramount, they've switched. They've went from the oldies to taking flight, with Top Gun being their big one. But Babylon, we both still have it in picture. I have it at 9. Do you also have it at 9, or has it moved after seeing it?
I have it at 9, but I feel like realistically it's 10, and I think it could miss. It could be number 11. I just don't know what's over it. I don't know if it's Glass Onion or RRR or The Woman King, but I think one of those 3 is number 9, and this is number 10. I still think it gets in picture. I think that it could miss picture. It could miss actress. Mm-hmm. Like, Margot Robbie is not safe at all.
SAG.
I thought it was a locked 5 for a while. Yeah, we'll have to see it SAG. I don't think Brad Pitt makes it in. I mean, Jean Smart hasn't been making it anywhere, but people were talking about her early in the year. I don't know. I don't see this making screenplay or cinematography or editing. So for me, I guess I'm predicting it in picture, actress, score, costumes, production design, and that's it for me.
Okay, I'm a little bit higher than you in the movie as well as its nomination terms. I have it at 9. I think it's a pretty safe 9, but I could see the off chance it does miss and RR and Knives Out both get in. Chazelle feels out for director, as we've said in previous episodes. But like, I know there's the case, people are like, oh, who could be the 5th slot? Is it Polly? Is it Field? Is it Rajamouli? Is it Lerman? Chazelle's just not in that conversation there.
No, not at all.
Robbie feels like if the movie gets in, she gets in. If the movie misses, that means Woman King's probably in, so then Viola Davis would get in. So I feel like it's a 2 for 2. It's either they both come or they both miss, sort of thing. So I could see that depending on how the movie goes. Supporting actors, where we get to an interesting race, because obviously we have Kwan, the 2 Banshee boys, but I don't know what to do after that, because I don't think it'll be double Fablemans. Ben Whishaw seems out. The Oscars aren't doing Hanks, Henry, or Redmayne, so that leaves
They could do
Pitt.
Henry. They really could do Henry.
Mm-hmm. I still haven't seen Causeway. I love Tyree Henry, so I wouldn't be mad at that. I also think Brad Pitt's really good in this. That scene he has discussing legacy and the near last act, I thought was very good. That would be his Oscar clip to me. I know you mentioned the scene with him on the phone. He's very good in that one as well. But when he's discussing just about, like, he knows like his career's on the decline, but he still wants to be a part of something. Like, he doesn't appreciate like being put down like the magazines, but like he gets to like express verbally, have it told to him, like, hey, you were it. There's nothing else you could have done. You just reached the end. To your whole points of like what Babylon's about. And yeah, screenplay, it feels out, even though I wouldn't nominate it still. It feels like there's a small chance. I'm not sure. And then for text, cinematography, it's battling for that 5th spot. Editing, it's gone. Score, we both have it winning. Costumes, I feel like it's in. Production design, it's in. Makeup, it's battling for that 5th slot. Sound, it's probably out, but it could surprise. And yeah, so I think I have it for an extra 1 or 2 than you have it for.
Yeah, I think you're predicting it a little bit higher than I am, because I don't think it's making cinematography. Because the way that I see it, I'm thinking of this as Nightmare Alley at this point. I don't think it's not Don't Look Up, it's Nightmare Alley, where it's divisive. It's going to really depend on people really supporting it as like, well, this is a big movie, like big movies should be. And I don't know. I see Margot Robbie as Bradley Cooper. She could miss like Bradley Cooper.
Yeah.
And like Nightmare Alley, it's going to underperform in some. I mean, it's going to overperform on Oscar morning. But all the nominations that we think it could have gotten at the beginning of the year, we have to think realistically, what is it going to get in the end? And ultimately, I'm just going through and trimming down things because I'm like, is it really undeniably strong here? It's undeniably strong in 3 categories, and that's score, costumes, and production design. It's win competitive in 2 of those. It's win competitive for score and production design. I don't think it's competitive in costumes, but those 3, it's safe in. Everything else is iffy, and I'm just thinking I'll maybe throw in 1 or 2 more off of that, but this is not going to be one of the nominations leaders. So I don't have any hopes for it in editing or in sound. I mean, maybe it makes makeup, but I'm not big on this one for Oscar chances.
Well, for everyone out there, we both had a lot to say about Babylon. Were you more on the positive side? Were you more on the negative side? Do you think it's getting for Best Picture, or do you think it's out just because of how divisive it is? But until next time, my name is Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and Clayton was right on Fantasy Filmball.